I first heard the whispering when I was brushing my teeth and scrolling through memes on my phone like a normal, emotionally avoidant adult. At first, I assumed it was just the neighbor yelling at his Roomba again. He's got this thing where he thinks it's spying on him for the government, which honestly might be true. But no, the sound wasn't coming from the vents or the hallway. It was coming from my bedroom closet, which hadn't been opened since I crammed a bunch of unpaid parking tickets and 3 Halloween costumes into it 4 months ago. The whisper was deep, echoey, and kind of wet, like someone was gargling battery acid while reciting the terms and conditions of a cursed iTunes update. Now, most people might have called a priest or at least moved out. Me? I stood there in my Scooby-Doo boxers, electric toothbrush hanging out of my mouth like a limp cigar, and said out loud, "Nope, we're not doing this tonight, Cthulhu." Big mistake. Huge. The closet door flung open like it was auditioning for a low-budget Exorcist reboot. A swirling black void belched out fog that smelled suspiciously like Axe body spray and ancient despair. Then, out of the swirling gloom slithered something I could only describe as an unholy combination of calamari, oil slick, and a hot topic. Tentacles, eyes, shifting limbs that seemed to loop into themselves in defiance of Euclidean geometry, and a mouth that looked like it wanted to either give me unsolicited life advice or devour my soul. Possibly both. "Behold," it thundered, voice echoing directly into my spinal cord. "I am Ilganax, scourge of thought, lord of the whispering pit, devourer of sanity." "Can you do that a little quieter?" I asked, wincing, cutting him off. My neighbor upstairs is a light sleeper, and already hates me since the great microwave popcorn incident. There was a pause. One of its eyes blinked sideways. Another one rolled, a full 360. A tentacle scratched behind what may or may not have been an ear. "I apologize. I tend to project." "You tend to invade my bedroom, actually," I said, backing toward the bed slowly. Chairman Meow, my cat, watched this all with mild interest of a creature who once stared unblinking into his screensaver for 6 hours and only blinked because he sneezed. "I have observed you," Ilganax continued, voice lowering to the volume of a disgruntled audiobook narrator. "For months I have lurked in the shadows of your lonely existence. I know your hour of weakness. I know your search history." I winced again, but for different reasons. Okay, let's agree right now that no one needs to talk about the 2:14 a.m. Google search. He, or it, ignored me, gesturing one undulating appendage toward the open closet like a game show host revealing a showcase of nightmares. "I come to offer guidance. For you, Michael B. Henderson, of apartment 2B, are what the mortal realm calls undateable." My jaw dropped. "Excuse me?" "Do not be ashamed. The mark of the forever alone is not your fault. I, too, have faced rejection. Once in the year of the Screaming Comet, I was turned down by the Void Queen of the 17th Plane because I talked too much about my own limbs. It is a wound I carry with pride." Sorry, wait. Are you seriously here to give me dating advice from my closet? "Yes," he said proudly, "for I have studied your rituals. I have watched the sacred texts of love and war. The Bachelor, Love is Blind, 90-day fiancé. I possess wisdom beyond your pitiful Tinder swipes. I sat down on the edge of the bed, toothbrush still buzzing in my hand like a confused bee. You're telling me you're an ancient, unknowable entity from beyond time and space, and you've come here not to eat my soul or enslave humanity, but to be my wingman? He swelled proudly, dark matter pulsing with smugness. Wingman? Love guru? Matchmaker supreme? Yes, consider me your cosmic Tinder plus. And somewhere behind him, inside the closet void, something screamed. It sounded like a goat and a dial-up modem having a nervous breakdown. I don't know if I should be flattered or filing a restraining order with the Department of Eldritch Affairs. You need me, for you have failed your mortal mating rituals 17 times in a row. Hold up, that is a... Okay, technically true, but still rude. I have seen you fumble a date so hard, you apologize to a waitress for existing. I was nervous. You once asked a woman if she had any hobbies besides being hot, and then spilled miso soup on her dog. That dog should not have been in a sushi place. And yet here you are, alone, single, standing in the presence of a vast abyssal god with bad breath and even worse pickup lines. Fortunately, I am here to help you seduce. Please don't use the word seduce while oozing. Very well. Romance. Better? Marginally. He receded back into the closet slightly, leaving a trail of glistening ichor on my hardwood floor. Then rest, Michael of Henderson. Tomorrow we begin your training. You shall be a Lothario of the flesh realm. I really wish you'd call it literally anything else. We shall begin with opening lines, such as, "Hello, female. I possess a spine of sufficient length. Shall we merge our auras in mutual appreciation of terrible network television?" I threw a pillow at him. It passed through the void with a wet plorp. "Just think about it," he called, as the closet door slowly creaked shut, whispering horrors echoing off the walls like a demonic ASMR channel. I sat on my bed, staring into the spot where a minor god of madness had just tried to set me up on a date using what I can only assume was advice from a Tumblr account possessed by Satan. My cat blinked at me slowly, then climbed up onto my chest, curled into a loaf, and muttered in a perfectly clear voice, "This is only the beginning." I didn't even flinch. I just nodded and said, "Yeah, I figured." Now, there are many bad ideas in the history of humanity. Invading Russia in the winter, eating gas station sushi, naming your kid Brayden. But the moment I clipped a wireless mic to the inner lip of my jacket and popped a Bluetooth earpiece into my right ear so an interdimensional tentacle god could feed me dating lines in real time, that was the moment I punched my ticket into the Bad Idea Hall of Fame and then immediately lit it on fire with eldritch napalm. And to be fair, it had been his idea. "You require direct intervention," Ilganax had bellowed, his voice somehow both gurgling and smug. "I shall be your voice, your ear, your romantic parasite." That last one's not a great pitch. Microphones are the sacred totems of this world. And with this, I shall feed you lines dipped in the ink of the stars themselves. What if she hears you? I shall speak in frequencies only you can perceive, he said, oozing confidence. I know the language of flirtation. I have watched every episode of Love Island, even the recaps. I had doubts. I had a stomachache. But I also hadn't been on a real date in almost a year, and was currently having my best conversations with a cat who might be a prophet. So I found myself walking into Cafe Trepidation, a place that somehow managed to be both hipster and haunted, wearing a blazer I bought in 2014, and earbuds that pulsed softly with the voices of the damned. Samantha was already there. Samantha, the barista, who'd once drawn a smiling skull in my latte foam and said, "You look like someone who needs caffeine and therapy." Samantha with sharp eyes, sharper wit, and exactly zero tolerance for BS. Samantha, who, for some reason, had agreed to meet me for a drink after I spent 10 minutes last week nervously comparing the concept of love to software updates. She waved when she saw me. "Hey, Michael." I panicked and whispered into the mic. "Okay, she said hi, what now?" Ilganax's voice slithered through my earpiece like a cold slug. "Greet her with power. Assert dominance with a compliment that hints at mystery." "What?" "Repeat after me. Hello. I have seen your shadow in my dreams, and it comforted me." "That sounds like a threat." "Trust the process." I sat down across from Samantha, swallowed my soul, and said, "Hey, I've seen your shadow in my dreams. It comforted me." Samantha blinked. "Okay, that's different. Is that like poetry or a red flag?" I chuckled nervously. "Little column A, little column B." Ilganax hissed, "Excellent recovery. Now offer a gift." "I don't have a gift." "Yes, you do. In your left pocket." I reached in and pulled out what felt like a tiny vibrating pouch. "It's a rock," I said out loud, staring in horror at the pulsating green pebble in my palm. How did you get this in my pocket?" "Is that glowing?" "Only in certain light," I said way too quickly. It just blinked. It's shy." Samantha snorted. "Thank the gods." "You're weird." "Oh, you have no idea?" Ilganax coiled in my ear. "Now ask her about her essence." "You mean hobbies?" "Yes, but make it sound like a blood bond." "So, what do you do for fun?" I asked, ignoring the blood bond part. "Other than being handed radioactive rocks by strangers, I'm into horror podcasts, photography, and feeding the raccoons behind my building." "Tell her you too feed the night creatures." "Me too. I feed night creatures, mostly, metaphorical ones." "Are you okay?" "Never," I said honestly. There was a moment of silence, and just as I thought I might be salvaging this disaster with humor and honesty, Ilganax decided it was time to crank the nightmare dial. "Now, engage in the ancient ritual of flirtation, the compliment." "Okay, keep it simple, don't get weird, just a compliment," I whispered. "Tell her her face is a symmetrical altar of flesh, and your heart beats the ritual drum." I refused. I smiled at Sam and tried something simple. "You have a great laugh." It makes the rest of the room kinda disappear. Sam looked pleasantly surprised. That's actually really sweet. Ilganax hissed. I am offended. I am the master of lines. I invented the compliment in the year of the bleeding sea. Mortal charm is nothing compared to. I winced as he screamed directly into my eardrum. Tell her you'd sacrifice a goat just to smell her shampoo. What? You heard me. A shampoo, a goat romance. Sam tilted her head. Everything okay? Yeah, just intrusive thoughts. Cool, same. We actually laughed together for a second. Then the lights flickered. And I don't mean a romantic flicker. I mean the power went out, briefly. The music stuttered, the walls hummed. The barista screamed and dropped an entire tray of espresso shots. Ilganax? It was a small surge. You were about to kiss. No, we weren't. I felt it. The energy was building. I merely accelerated the situation. You exploded the jukebox. Sam, to her credit, stayed remarkably chill. Okay, this is officially the weirdest date I've ever had. I can explain, I added. Actually, I can't. But if you'd like a second date with fewer spontaneous power outages and eldritch sabotage, I would really like to try again. There was a long pause. Sam looked me up and down. Do you always have this much interference? I glanced at my jacket where the microphone was now hissing smoke and leaking what looked like cherry Slurpee. Honestly, it's kind of been the story of my life. Sam grinned. Cool. Text me. And just like that, she left. Possibly intrigued, possibly traumatized, but not repulsed. As the door shut behind her, Ilganax coiled in my ear with smug delight. The flirting ritual was a success. No thanks to you. I disagree. My rock was well received. You gave me a sentient rock, nearly blew up a coffee shop, and suggested I compliment her shampoo with a goat ritual. And yet she smiled. I sighed, leaned back in the booth, and motioned for a drink. God help me, I think you might be onto something. The second date was supposed to be normal. Keyword, supposed. I'd made a plan. Simple. Coffee, bookstore, maybe take a stroll through the park if we both weren't feeling introvert burnout. Minimal tentacles, no microphones. I had accidentally dropped the earpiece into a glass of orange juice the night before, and disabled the mic after catching Ilganax trying to use it as a megaphone to my dreams. He called it emergency coaching. I call screaming the phrase, touch hands with intent at 3:27 a.m. a nightmare. So, date 2. Clean slate, me, Sam, no eldritch interference. Naturally, he didn't take that well. It started off small. The coffee shop we picked, different from the first one, had changed its name overnight to something unsettlingly esoteric. The Mocha Sigil, their new logo, a burning eye surrounded by cinnamon sticks. The barista wore a t-shirt that said, "Brewed with Madness." When I asked if this was a themed thing, he stared through me and whispered, "The phone sees all." Sam thought it was hilarious. You sure this wasn't your idea? I laughed. She took a sip of her drink. Honestly, I'd still come here. The espresso's weirdly motivating. That's when I noticed it. Her shadow flickering independently from her movements. It waved at me. I waved back before I could stop myself. Sam tilted her head. You okay? Yeah, just, stretching my hand. She nodded, sipping again. So, I've been thinking about that rock you gave me. Oh no. I still have it. It started humming when I put it near my succulent. The plant hasn't died yet, so I'm letting them bond. The rock's alive? It makes little noises at night, like chewing. Okay, yeah, you need to get rid of that rock immediately. No way, it's growing on me. Literally or metaphorically, I didn't ask. The point is, Ilganax was clearly not done helping. Later, while we were browsing the occult section at the bookstore, I picked up a copy of So You Accidentally Married a Demon, a beginner's guide, and turned to joke about it, only to find Samantha reading How to Date When Your Aura Screams Sacrifice Me. We laughed, but something in the air had changed. The lights above us dimmed slightly, the air grew thick, the self-help shelf moaned, and then I heard him. Not in my ear, but in my mind. Ah, so you think you can ignore me? I dropped the book. It hit the floor with a squelch. Books aren't supposed to squelch. I gave you success. I bled charm into your veins, and now you hide me? I muttered under my breath. I just wanted one day without psychic screaming, man. Sam leaned over. Did you say something? I said, this place has heavy themes. She raised an eyebrow, but let it go. She poisons you with logic and coffee. I offer you glory, and you deny me. I shall show you the consequences. I sighed. Please don't make the store bleed. Too late. The fire alarm went off. All the books in the mysticism aisle burst into flame-free fire. Just light and howling. A soft chant echoed from the ceiling tiles. Left swipe, left swipe, left swipe. Wow, you always bring this level of chaos to your dates? Only the good ones, I wheezed out. We stood in the parking lot for a minute, watching the bookstore flicker between dimensions. Sam smiled at me, brushing hair behind her ear like it wasn't raining locusts 5 feet away. So, what's your deal, really? You're like cursed, but in a fun way. Okay, you want the truth? She nodded. My closet contains a cosmic horror from beyond space and time. He decided to become my dating coach. I tried to ditch him. He's jealous, and he can probably hear us right now. He may be inside that weird orb in your purse. I'm really sorry. There was silence. Long and waited. Then she sighed and said, Yeah, I kind of figured. You what? The rock thing? The whispering when I call you? The fact that you sometimes blink sideways? You think I didn't notice? Wait, I blink sideways? Only during emotional moments? I sat down on the curb defeated. So, you're not running away? I mean, I might walk briskly if he starts speaking backwards through the sky, but right now, I kind of like you, even if you come with extra appendages. That's when the sky cracked open like a dropped egg. A single, massive eyeball peered through the gap in the clouds. The trees bowed. Birds flew backwards. A Starbucks cup crumbled to ash. Ilganax descended. Not fully, just a projection. A semi-corporeal blob of tendrils and light, hovering over us like the world's most judgmental jellyfish. Traitor! You chose the mortal over me. This him? Yep. Hi, I love the ambience. You cannot comprehend what you've lost. I gave him lines. I gave him presents. I taught him to stand without apology.
You made him offer a vibrating rock.
It was a token of my esteem.
I'm pretty sure it tried to bite my cactus.
Sam stepped forward, fearless.
Listen, Oozeball, I like him the way he is. Anxious, cursed, and weirdly charming. So if you're gonna try to scare me off, you better bring something stronger than reality distortion and gendered insults.
There was silence. Then from above, Ilganax muttered, I do not understand mortals. I know, that's kind of the problem. He paused, twitched, shrunk slightly. I shall retreat. For now. But know this. I shall watch every moment of your love, and I shall judge your text messages.
Fair.
Then he vanished. Just like that. The clouds zipped closed. The sky returned to blue. The Starbucks cup reformed and resumed its purpose.
So, third date?
I nodded. Let's just stay in and watch something normal, like a serial killer documentary.
Perfect.
And as we walked off, hand in hand, I swore I heard the whisper of ancient despair grumble, Now, you two, don't stay up too late. We didn't talk much on the way back to my apartment. Maybe because the sky had just tried to declare its feelings through a tentacle god, or maybe because it's hard to be casual when your eldritch ex-wingman promises to haunt your group chats. Either way, silence suited us. Sam held my hand like she was grounding me to this reality, which, frankly, felt increasingly optional. I opened the door to my apartment, and immediately sensed something was wrong. Subtly wrong. The air was weird. My hallway had a slight curve that hadn't been there before, and the ceiling fan was spinning upwards. Sam paused.
Did you redecorate using a meat grinder?
No, but I think someone else did. Chairman Meow sat in the middle of the living room, eyes glowing, tail swishing like a metronome in 5/4 time. He didn't meow. He just stared like he'd been waiting.
Hey, kitty.
Sam knelt. He turned to her, stood up on his hind legs, stood and said in a calm, deliberate voice, The herald has returned. Behind us, the closet creaked open with the sound of 1,000 groans muffled through wet wool. A cold wind that smelled like sadness and wet pennies seeped into the room. Ilganax, we talked about this. Did we? You left me. You chose her.
You were never in the running.
I am your greatest ally. Look how I have helped you. The closet groaned wider. Tentacles flickered just beyond the doorframe, hesitant. Not the all-consuming storm of before. This time it felt like sulking. Even the shadows looked mopey. Sam stood with crossed arms.
Look, Yogurt Nax, or whatever your name is.
It is Ilganax.
Cool. I don't care. You can't just rewrite physics because your favorite mortal got a girlfriend.
I taught him to be bold, to make eye contact without weeping.
You also rewired my microwave to only speak Sumerian.
It is a superior language for reheating. Chairman Meow jumped under the coffee table and extended one paw toward the closet, eyes glowing brighter now.
The veil thins. The deal must be struck or the bindings will unravel. Also, I could use some catnip right now.
Sam gave me a look.
I think your cat just gave us a prophecy of something weird.
I stepped toward the closet. My apartment was actively warping now. Gravity had taken a casual interest in vertical denial, and a small writhing vortex had opened over the kitchen sink. Ilganax's ego was warping reality faster than an HOA could file a complaint. Enough, I said. I raised my voice. You want to help me date? Fine. Here's what that means. It means boundaries, Ilganax. It means sometimes people say no. It means you don't throw a fit and turn the coffee shop into a sacrificial realm just because I found someone who likes me for my neuroses and in spite of my horizontal blinking. Sam gave me a proud little nod. Chairman Meow burped. From the closet, a long, low sigh, like a balloon of misery slowly deflating over the ruins of an ancient temple. I only wanted to belong. You do belong, but not as a third wheel in my romantic life. Can I, at least, observe? He asked, like a damp kid trying to get invited to a prom cleanup. Sam frowned. Define observe? Well, passive, mostly. Occasional tips. Some whispered omens. I looked to her. She shrugged. Fine, but if you cause one more power outage, I will find a way to summon your mother. She is very disappointed in me. Please, no. The closet door creaked closed. Gravity snapped back. The vortex vanished. The fridge coughed and fell silent. Chairman Meow slowly returned to cat mode and immediately began to lick himself. So, you want to finish that documentary? I nodded, and she curled up beside me, head on my shoulder. From the closet came a faint, respectful whisper. You're welcome. A week passed without incident. No spontaneous time loops. No hauntings from forgotten moons. Ilganax had, more or less, honored the truce. He still muttered through the closet on occasion, usually commentary on our Netflix selections. This one dies, her arc is weak. But he stayed on his side of the door. A few times I caught him projecting passive-aggressive hieroglyphs on the wall, but they were mostly just complaints about Sam's fondness for decaf and yada yada yada. And honestly, things were good. Sam came over most nights. We made tacos, watched murder shows, and ignored the soft, ancient, ambient chanting coming from my sock drawer. Chairman Meow occasionally entered trances in mid-petting session, staring into the void with that glassy look cats get when they see ghosts or remember they were once worshipped. But for the most part, life was stable. Chaotic, cursed, but stable. Still, I knew something was coming. It happened when I was brushing my teeth. Sam was already wrapped in bed, spending the night, wrapped in blankets, softly snoring, occasionally muttering threats to whatever raccoon she was at war with behind her building. The light flickered in the bathroom, not ominously, just enough to say, hey, cue the scene. And behind me, the closet door creaked open. Ilganax, I said through toothpaste foam. You picking a fight or just saying hi? Neither, came the voice, quieter than usual. I came to say goodbye. I turned, blinked, and tried not to spit my toothpaste on the floor. Goodbye? My work here is done. You mean you're leaving? In a manner. I received an offer, a coaching position in the forums of human internet. Reddit? Yes, they have summoned me through incantations of, bro, she ghosted me, WTF. Good grief. I have much to teach them. They are ripe for the eldritch. I leaned on the sink. So you're just moving on? After everything? The bad advice that turned out to be good, the sabotage that actually ended up helping, and the refrigerator haunting? I taught you to stand, to risk, to wield confidence like a flaming tentacle.
You also made me puke tar on an appetizer?
Well, growth is messy. I nodded. Fair, and for what it's worth, thanks. The closet pulsed softly like a black hole purring. You were my favorite mortal, even if you did reject the bond of cosmic brotherhood.
I didn't reject it, I just redefined it with boundaries. He was silent for a long beat.
Yes, that is a thing humans do seem to do. Another pause. Take care of the cat. He knows things. I figured. The closet slowly closed. A final whisper. Good luck with her. She is strange, but so are you. And just like that, he was gone. No swirling winds, no screaming. Just a quiet departure that made you think maybe not all monsters were bad at heart. Just very socially maladjusted. I turned out the bathroom light, crawled into bed next to Sam, and curled under the blankets.
Everything okay?
Yeah. The god in my closet left to go mentor dudes on Reddit. She didn't even open her eyes. Good for him. And we drifted off to sleep to the sound of silence, save for the soft purring of a prophet cat curled at our feet and the faintest whisper from the floor vent. Tell her her laugh is a song for the stars. I will, buddy. Eventually. But not tonight. Tonight, we rest. Hey everybody, Kevin from Nightmares Nightly here. I just wanted to let y'all know I created a Spotify account. So if y'all enjoy listening to audio in the background or just prefer Spotify in general, I'll leave a link to it in the description and comments down below. I'll be slowly uploading the backlog of my videos over there, along with every new story as well. Give me a follow and a rating if you could. And as always, thanks for listening, everybody. I signed the papers for the house the way you accept a friend request from an unfamiliar aunt, with a cautious smile, and the understanding that consequences would be immediate and bizarre. The realtor, a man who wore too much cologne and not enough conscience, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Congratulations, Guy." And I said thanks. And then he repeated, "No, really, congratulations, Guy." Like he'd only just realized that my legal first name actually is Guy, and his brain was trying to buffer the concept. And people do that a lot. It was annoying for the first 20 years of my life, but now I'm used to it. And I don't even have a middle name, so I'm just Guy. But hey, I own a house now. Bizarre for me to even say. Still, the price was so low that I figured it either had black mold, a portal to Ohio, or ghosts. I was honestly rooting for ghosts. Mold is a headache I don't even want to deal with. Ohio requires a map. Ghosts require vibes. The vibes began while I was unlocking the door for the first time, and the wind sighed through the maple out front like a warning nobody paid extra for. Inside, the entryway smelled like old books and forgotten cinnamon, with a hint of sadness. The floors creaked with the nostalgia of 1,000 footsteps and one regrettable tap dance. I set down my single heroic suitcase, a box of mismatched mugs, and a flat of instant ramen that made me feel like a pioneer of poor choices. Then I walked to the kitchen and introduced myself to the fridge like it was a roommate. The fridge hummed. When I opened it, A post-it note fluttered from the top shelf to the floor like a shy moth. It said in tidy, loopy handwriting, "Welcome, new meat. Please label your leftovers." Now, this was a little concerning, but I reread the note, appreciated the penmanship, and yelled into the living room. "If you're a ghost, we're doing a chore wheel. I have standards, you know." My voice sounded small in the high ceilings and vintage crown molding. From somewhere upstairs, a door slammed in a way that said, "We'll see about that." A chill ran down my spine, then circled back for a victory lap. I explored. The house had character. The parlor had a fireplace with soot in the shape of a face that looked mildly unimpressive with me. The dining room had built-in cabinets that smelled like every Thanksgiving that ever went wrong. The bathroom faucet dripped with dramatic timing, each drop landing like an ominous metronome. On the fogged mirror above the sink, someone had written "nice hair" and finger streaks that slowly faded as I wiped, revealing my hair, which was fine. But this was another red flag for me. I mean, come on, my first shower in my new house, and I'm greeted with that? By the second hour I was there, the house had introduced itself by way of small stunts. A stack of my moving boxes labeled kitchen scooted 2 inches to the left like it was a shy crab whenever I looked away. The record player in the den spun on its own and played exactly 8 bars of a song I'm pretty sure was from a 1970s game show. And somewhere in the walls, a soft chuckle echoed like a radio turned to mischief. I set up a lawn chair in the empty living room because couches are for people who make better life choices, and cracked open a seltzer, and addressed the air. "Look, if you're gonna haunt me, we need ground rules. 1. No jump scares before my morning coffee. 2. If you break something, you buy... Well, you know what? Just don't break anything because I don't think ectoplasm has Venmo. 3. Pantry poltergeisting is fine, as long as you don't mess with the ramen." The chandelier tinkled like it was laughing. A draft moved across my neck. It smelled faintly of peppermint and stage makeup, and then a voice spoke from just behind my left ear. "Rule 4. You stop calling it a haunt and start calling it enhanced hospitality." I flinched so hard my soul tried to get out first. When I turned around, there he was, hovering a foot above the floor like a smug fog machine in a velvet suit. Crushed purple velvet, lapels wide enough to hang a family of raccoons, collar popped like the 70s never ended, with hair slicked back in a style that apologized for nothing. He was translucent, which I mention not because it's surprising for a ghost, but because it made the velvet look like a hologram trying to seduce disco. He had a faint glow, not the heavenly kind, more like someone overdid it with a ring light. "Hi," I said, because I am polite even to the dead. "I'm Guy." He looked like I'd slapped him with a pun. "You're Guy?" "Proper noun, capital G." He floated down until his feet were almost touching the floor, and gave me the visual once-over people give a sandwich they didn't order, but it looks edible. "Bold choice. I'm Gregory. Or I was. Now I'm Greg when I don't have the energy for 3 syllables. Big G when I'm feeling saucy, and oh God, not again when I knock over a vase. This is my house. Well, our house now. Joint custody. I haunt, you pay taxes. Teamwork." I took another sip of seltzer. "So you left me a post-it." Gregory swept an arm in a theatrical arc that would have killed on Broadway if he hadn't already. "Haunting is 80% ambience, 15% paperwork, 5% finding the good pen. I like a note. Sets a tone." "You also wrote in the bathroom mirror." "Positive reinforcement. I'm a supportive presence and I enjoy handwriting." The afterlife is... you know. He glanced at my lawn chair inside. Furniture is a journey, I see. It's minimalist. It's a cry for help. And don't worry, the house comes with exactly 3 haunted ottomans and a chase lounge that killed a senator. We'll make something work. He drifted toward the parlor mantel and put his elbow on it, and then his elbow through it, then pretended that didn't happen. So, guy with the name of every man in a stock photo. Why are you here? Because the price was suspiciously low and I have a weakness for woodwork and bad decisions? Gregory beamed. A man after my own heart. Or the empty space where it was. I died mid-magic trick in 1978. Terrible year for polyester. Wonderful year for dramatic exits. The final words were, "Is this your card?" It wasn't. I like to think my legacy is a cautionary tale about double-checking your deck. And now you... what? Scare people for fun? Scare? Sweetheart, I entertain. You're a realtor. I moved the thermostat 4 degrees every time he looked away because he said vintage like it meant moldy. The plumber? I whispered, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty until he cried. The raccoon in the attic? We play chess on Tuesdays. He cheats. I respect it. I set down my can, leaned back, and weighed the situation like a person weighs if they should get fries. Okay, Gregory. Counter proposal. You keep doing your little enhanced hospitality. I not only tolerate it, I help. In exchange, you stop pulling starter-level pranks on me and we collaborate. I'm planning a housewarming party. We turn this place into the funniest, stupidest haunted carnival anyone's ever seen. We prank my friends, we roast my coworkers. You in? Gregory's eyes lit like glitter under stage lights. He clapped once and a faint puff of confetti exploded above his head, then realized he lacked the molecular density to sustain confetti and looked mildly disappointed. Guy, I have waited decades for someone with both a pulse and taste. You, sir, are the chosen live one. Chosen live one, huh. We'll workshop it, but yeah, a party. We'll open with subtlety. Lights that dim when people say the word vibes. We'll escalate fast. Portraits that track you, cabinets that gossip, and Alexa possession at precisely 9:13 p.m. that plays Who Let the Dogs Out whenever someone says wine, and at midnight? He leaned in conspiratorially. I smelled wintergreen and bad ideas. At midnight, we launched the main event. The Ouija board of brutal honesty. Gregory floated towards the staircase with new purpose. Come, the attic holds props. Also, a cursed beanbag that whispers. We'll need a fog machine, a fan to make dramatic curtains, and 3 tasteful skulls. We ascended. The steps complained. The attic door stuck just long enough to be cinematic, then gave way to a space that seemed much bigger than the house should allow, and trunks sat in dramatic piles. A mannequin with a chipped porcelain face leaned against a wardrobe and judged me. A banner drooped from a beam that read, Magic by Gregory, ta-da or else. And I decided I loved this stupid house more than most of my exes. So, I said, opening a trunk to find a mishmash of velvet cloths, brass candlesticks, a top hat with a hole punched through, and a deck of cards that actually sighed when I touched them. Why the pranks on me earlier? Gregory drifted upside down, considering. A house hazing. You moved in with optimism and ramen. I had to know if you could take a joke, because if you couldn't, I would be condemned to eternally haunt a man who says no worries if not, and means I will seethe. But you? You rolled with a post-it. You said chore wheel. You are the storm that meets the teacup. I'll take that as a compliment. It was an epic poem condensed to a sentence. He plucked the deck of cards from my hand without touching it. Cards fanned themselves in the air, faces winking, then rearranged into a perfect house of cards that said Guy on one side and G-U-Y on the other, because he liked symmetry. Also, I haven't had a proper friend since the raccoon learned how to video call and left me on red. Loneliness in the afterlife is like tax season in the mortal one. Endless, petty, and full of paper. I felt a tug in the space behind my sternum, the one responsible for decency and buying donuts for the office. Well, consider me your friend, a live division. Finally, a guy to my Greg, he said genuinely. He paused, smiled too big, then pointed two translucent fingers at me like a middle school teacher who has decided you're the class clown they're going to weaponize. We are going to be unbearable, I agreed, chest warm with the prospect of camaraderie and crimes. But like in a festive way. Festively unbearable. Now, help me move this trunk of controlled winds. Controlled winds? Fans! But I deal with it controlled winds because it makes me feel like a wizard. We found fog machine components, a box of fake cobwebs with a real spider who was fine with the arrangement, a drawer of rubber bats, and a binder labeled Gregory's Best Insults that I decided to save for a rainy day or a dry one. Honestly, any day would do. We made piles, we made plans, we made a schedule with time slots. As dusk smeared purple across the windows, the house settled. Gregory floated to the middle of the attic and spun slowly, arms wide, eyes bright. Can you feel it, Guy? The fizz of incoming chaos? The static before a prank? This is what I missed. The build, the promise, the shared plotting. I can feel my lower back giving up. But yeah, this is gonna slap. He hovered closer, grinning, and for a second, he looked less like a caricature and more like a person lit from within by the dumb human joy of making other people laugh, even if that laughter sometimes sounded like screaming. Tomorrow night, we baptize your new life with foolishness. We christen your housewarming with heckle and spectacle. We terrorize Chad. All Chads, I said. United we prank, he whispered, holding out a translucent hand. I high-fived air and felt a faint tingle, like a carbonated handshake. United we prank. The invitations went out the way all truly cursed modern gatherings are organized. Group text with a chaotic mix of emojis, a Google Map pin that took you to the wrong side of the block, and a promise of free food, questionable music, and bring your weirdest energy. Gregory and I spent the day preparing like two stage moms who also moonlight as low-level warlocks. He hovered around the kitchen like a sous chef of the damned, while I hacked at avocados that had synchronized their ripeness for once in their green little lives. We found a box of portraits in the attic and set them up all over the house. We did all kinds of various little knickknacks here and there, and things that Gregory could manipulate with his ghostness. By 7, the doorbell moaned like an organ at a hockey game and the first wave of humans poured in. Steph and Mariah with a tote of hard seltzer. Trevor clinging to a Bluetooth speaker like it could save his life. My cousin Tia carrying a crock pot of meatballs that were either beef or a dare. And to my eternal confusion, Uncle Lou with an iguana wearing a bow tie. Behind them came the neighbors, Mrs. Pennington with brownies, her grandson who insisted on being called Blade, and Blade's girlfriend who wore sunglasses indoors like Anxiety's bodyguard. 2 Chads actually arrived. They arrived independently and instinctively avoided eye contact with one another, as if there could only be one. And then there was Doug, from work, skeptical, arms crossed, voice already warming up to say the word, actually, at any moment, whose presence caused Gregory to rub his translucent hands together, as if he too could smell blood in the water. We opened with subtlety, which for Gregory meant that whenever someone in the foyer said, "Wow, the vibes," the chandelier dimmed, sighed, and a single ghostly kazoo honked from nowhere. People laughed. People nervously checked the ceiling, and people said vibes on purpose to watch the lights sulk. Steph explored the kitchen and yelled, "Guy, your fridge just told me it's proud of my career path," which was both affirming and terrifying, because no one had ever been proud of Steph's career path, least of all Steph. Meanwhile, the record player slid its own needle across a dusty vinyl labeled Gregory's Greatest Hits and dropped us into an instrumental that sounded like a 1978 game show hosted by a corpse. Gregory hovered, preening, delighted with himself in a way that made me understand theater kids on a molecular level. At this point, he was still invisible to everyone else, only allowing myself to see him. By 8, the house was warm with bodies and storylines, the kind of party where someone starts with a "Remember Cancun?" and someone else says, "No," and the storyteller says, "Exactly." Gregory whispered into vents and knocked politely at closed cabinet doors just to watch them creak open like gossiping ants. When Kayla from HR put her purse down, it floated gently to a shelf and buckled itself in with a seatbelt none of us remembered installing. At precisely 9:13 p.m., the Alexa we installed woke up, made the sound of a demon clearing its throat, and announced in a cheery voice, "Now playing your personalized playlist, Reggae Toots and the Not-So-Madels," then launched into a horn-heavy groove timed perfectly to Trevor's attempt at flirting. Gregory leaned on the mantel and talked directly into the device like a late-night radio host who had been waiting 50 years to take calls. Alexa obeyed with the eagerness of a substitute teacher finally respected, fading tracks in and out, according to Gregory's hand signals like we had hired a DJ with unfinished business. When Chad number 2 bragged about his NFT portfolio, a drawer in the credenza slid open and hissed "boo" in long, mournful tones, then closed itself gently, as if exhausted by the concept. Doug approached, the way a cat approaches a glass of water, to knock it over, and then act offended. "Good party, guy," he said, already peering behind things, tapping baseboards, flicking a laser pointer at corners as though ghosts could be blinded by them. "How are you doing the stealing thing?" "What stealing thing?" He pointed up. The ceiling politely rotated 1 degree counterclockwise and then back, like it was stretching. "That one." "Yoga?" I said, because in my house I was allowed to be stupid in it. Gregory snorted directly into my brain and whispered, "Permission to annihilate?" "Lightly," I muttered. "Copy," he said, and Doug's phone buzzed in his pocket. Doug took it out and blanched as text messages began sending themselves. "Hey, thinking of you. Remember the bonsai I got you? Do you still have my hoodie?" His thumb jabbed uselessly at the screen while the phone vibrated like a guilty conscience. He glared at me. "Cute. Must be Mercury and Gatorade or something," I said, feigning innocence so hard my face cramped. Somewhere behind him a cabinet door opened, and a soft whispering chorus chanted, "Do not drunk text, do not drunk text in lullaby harmony." By 10, the 2 Chads had somehow found each other despite a house's worth of denial and entered a silent cold war over beer pong. Gregory floated a ball an artful inch off the table to see if they would notice, and they didn't. And then we unveiled the Ouija board of brutal honesty. Midnight approached like a rumor you secretly started, and we gathered a clump of willing fools around the low coffee table while the rest of the party hovered at the edge like spectators at a street fight. The board itself was classic Parker Brothers, if the Parker Brothers had hired a goth intern. Gregory had polished it until the letters gleamed. I cleared my throat, delivered an introduction that would have sounded like a joke if the lights hadn't dimmed perfectly on cue, and asked for our first question. Steph put 2 fingers on the planchette, glanced around as if confessing to a petty theft, and said,
"Board, be honest. Is Mariah secretly dating my crush?"
The planchette slid to yes, with the reluctant drama of a waiter delivering news about the last meatball. The room exploded with oohs and ahs and one,
"I knew it!"
as Mariah squealed and Steph cackled like she had hired me as a private detective. Next, Trevor leaned in. "Board, what do I need to do to finally get a promotion?" The planchette scraped. "Stopped saying crush the quarter. Change your email signature. Take a nap." That took a while for the planchette to spell out. Trevor nodded gravely as if he had just been given the 10 Commandments. Then Doug shouldered in.
"Let me,"
he said, eyes narrow.
"Board, how are you being manipulated tonight?"
The planchette wiggled, paused, then spelled, "By your ego." A perfect beat. The room howled. Gregory did a lazy loop in the air like a seabird in a travel brochure and whispered, 10 points. Doug flushed and pulled his hands back and muttered something about magnets and stalked away to interrogate the thermostat. We rode the wave. Small, vindictive truths and gentle nudges toward self-awareness. The board admonished a cousin to stop dating men who used the phrase content king, encouraged Mrs. Pennington to start a baking channel, reminded one Chad to apologize to the other for stealing his chill aura, and informed Uncle Lou that the iguana's name was Patricia and she was tired of the bow tie. Patricia flicked her tongue in exhausted agreement. Even good chaos has a tipping point, though, and ours wore a lanyard. Doug returned with the righteous fury of a man who had Googled debunking parlor tricks and skimmed 2 paragraphs. He clapped twice loudly.
"Attention,"
he announced to no one and everyone.
"I'm not saying there's not a vibe in here,"
the chandelier dimmed by muscle memory,
"but Guy is clearly running strings and magnets and maybe something in the ceiling. And I, for one, will not be punked at a housewarming party."
Gregory drifted to my shoulder and asked,
"Permission to escalate from light roast to flambe?"
"Serve him," I said, and I have never said anything with more petty pleasure. It began with his beer. The red Solo cup slid 2 inches to the left every time he reached for it, a polite avoidance that made him look like a cat failing to catch a laser pointer. He lunged at it. It slid. He lunged, it slid, the room murmured. Then his phone chimed again and began projecting his search history onto the nearest wall in large, helpful letters. How to win an argument without facts. Do ghosts respect boundaries? Can pants shrink? How do magnets work? People laughed in a way that's half friendship and half weapon. Doug rounded on me.
"Grow up."
"I'm 31, I said, as if that meant anything to anyone. Gregory snapped his fingers, which shouldn't have made a sound but did, and Doug's belt unbuckled itself with the polite efficiency of an automatic door. The room gasped. His pants puddled. He yelped, grabbed, wrestled, swore, managed to hoist them back up just in time to realize that his shoes had been gently relocated to the top of the bookcase, where they stared down at him like traitors. "Not funny," he said, which is how you know it's funny. "This is harassment." "Doug?" Gregory said aloud for the first time to the crowd, voice booming through the vents in what I can only describe as MGM lying for ghosts. The house has judged you. You have been found wanting. Also, whiny. Doug stared at the ceiling.
Come down here and fight me like a man.
I am a floating, velvet-clad miracle and will not be grounded by your insecurities, Gregory replied, then possessed the DJ. Not fully, just enough. The Bluetooth speaker crackled. Trevor's carefully curated playlist sneezed, and suddenly the living room was drenched in the opening chords of Pitbull's greatest hits. Doug, cornered by delight, attempted a counterspell called Being a Buzzkill. He shouted about safety codes, he threatened to call the cops. In all this time, he could have just left. The room lost its mind. Gregory bowed midair and whispered in my ear, I could retire on that moment. But spectacle is exhausting, and prankster gods know to land the plane before it turns into a cautionary tale. So, I stepped up on the bottom stair, clapped twice, not like Doug, and raised my voice above Mr. Worldwide. Friends, enemies, chads, you've been haunted by enhanced hospitality. Please collect your dignity near the coat rack. We have one final trick. The music faded into a polite heart thump. The lights cooled to a buttery glow, and Gregory floated beside me like a partner in a two-man circus. I held up a standard deck of cards, the one from the attic that sighed when touched. Gregory has a bit that never landed, I said, and he rolled his eyes with theatrical suffering. Let's fix that. I stepped down, fanned the cards in front of Mrs. Pennington like I had learned magic from a cereal box. Pick a card. She did. I made noise with my mouth like sleight of hand depends on sound effects. I lost a card on purpose, and also because I'm bad at this. I let the deck waterfall between my hands. I shrugged at Gregory, who smirked, and the entire house took a breath. By this point, Gregory had let himself known, and the crowd absolutely loved him. Then every portrait in the room cleared its throat in chorus and said, Is this your card? As Mrs. Pennington's chosen Queen of Hearts blazed into clean existence, larger than life, projected across the far wall in a flourish of velvet glitter and confetti cannons that absolutely did not exist until they did. The Queen winked. Mrs. Pennington screamed and laughed. The room detonated into applause so loud it scared two chads into hugging. Gregory's face, translucent, theatrical, and ridiculous, did something I hadn't seen it do. It softened the way a clenched fist becomes an open hand. He bowed. Not the hammy kind, but the real kind performers do when they've been seen and it matters. Thank you, he said to the room, but it was for me. And I nodded like a guy who had finally found the right friend. Applause rolled around the room like a tame thunderstorm, and I was still basking when Gregory went shiny. Not glowworm luminous, not Instagram filter soft, but iridescent, as if someone had turned his opacity slider past 100 and discovered a holographic sticker. He looked at his hands, which were throwing off tiny prisms, and then at me. Guy? He said, voice a little wobbly around the edges. I think I'm updating? Like the afterlife just pushed through a patch? Why are you sparkling? I said, because sometimes the obvious question is the right one. He rotated his wrists, trails of light following like obedient fireworks. Either I'm turning into a Lisa Frankfurter or, and don't quote me on this, I'm getting the big exit. You finished the trick. Not a trick, my trick. The one I borked so hard I died with this, is this your card? Still hanging in the air like a sad balloon. I think the universe runs on narrative customer service and you just close my ticket. The portraits leaned in. Alexa woke herself just enough to whisper, "Proceed to the light in 200 feet." Then went back to sleep. Patricia the iguana blinked, which for Patricia is basically a standing ovation. Gregory floated an inch higher without meaning to, light deepening from stage sparkle to sunrise. He grinned at me, all teeth and gratitude. Aha! I didn't realize there was fine print on haunting. Complete one fatal unfinished bit and collect your complimentary ascension. Bureaucracy. Wait, hold on, I said, stepping closer. You're leaving? Like, now? We just became a two-man menace. I know, he said, and for a second the showman slipped and the friend stood there instead, honest and bright and a little scared. I didn't plan for this. I assumed I'd haunt you until you threw me a Viking funeral with a smoke machine. But also, listen, this is the good weird, the best kind. He glanced toward the ceiling where a soft disk of light had unfurled like a polite UFO. Plus, I think my ride is double parked. Gregory smoothed his lapels out of habit that no longer applied, then ruined the solemnity by stage whispering, "If I get up there and it's just a DMV with clouds, I'm coming back for the confetti cannons." I laughed and then didn't. Do you need anything? Last requests, final roasts, lingering pettiness? He thought, eyes flicking through 50 years of mischief. Yeah, 3 things. 1, keep the chandelier bat. He believes in you. And 2, when you find someone who makes you forget to check for ghosts, tell them I approve loudly through a vent. And 3... He looked at the deck of cards on the table, the queen still winking on the wall. Keep asking, is this your card? Even when it isn't. Especially when it isn't. Deal, I said, because there were no other words. He brightened again, little comets of light zipping off his shoulders. Oh, and don't forget to play the raccoon upstairs, and let him cheat. He tilted his head, listening to something I couldn't hear. They're playing my song. Gregory looked from the light and to me, and hesitated, and then pulled a face like he'd remembered the most important thing. Hey, guy? Yeah? Thanks for being what your name says. A guy for the job. He lifted. Not like a helium balloon, but close enough. And the light took him without heat, without drama, just a satisfied ding. Elevator to elsewhere. Confetti popped. Not my cannons, but something fancier, and then drifted down as small paper notes I caught out of habit. Each one said the same thing in perfect cursive. United we prank. I laughed and cried in the dignified manner of a man alone in a crowd and then wiped my face with the back of my hand like a raccoon with good lighting. All right, I said to the house, to the guests, to the bat in the crystal chandelier. Drinks in the kitchen, compliments in the bathroom, and no more stealing anybody's pants or shoes. The chandelier flicked once, and when the last guest was gone and the confetti had decided to be normal paper again, I stuck a note to the fridge beside the chore wheel, turned off the lights, and whispered into the just barely busy quiet. Is this your card? Something in the rafters chuckled. It sounded, just for a second, like Gregory taking a bow from somewhere warm. The flyer didn't wait for me to notice it. It drifted down like a paper airplane and did a cocky loop and tapped my ankle as if to say, "You look dead inside." Neon headline, flame logo, QR code like a cursed crossword. Demon Life Coach, first session free. No soul down. Results may vary by cosmos. If you're asking what kind of adult sees that and decides to onboard with Hell's HR, hi, I'm Brad, 32, project coordinator. My manager calls me a safe pair of hands. I own 3 suits, all of them wrinkled in unique and historic ways. My plant has died 4 times and I've learned nothing. Also, and I hate this, I've spent too long marinating in forums that treat dating like a boss fight. I'm trying to be a different person than the comments I've upvoted, I'll tell you that. I rerouted to a game shop that sells incense and regret, bought a Ouija board, and walked home feeling like I just scheduled performance reviews with Destiny. I cleared my coffee table, lit my least threatening candle, and set the planchette down like a mouse waiting for the universe. 2 fingers, deep breath, Azaz, the name on the flyer. I said to my ceiling. Demon life coach, first session free, no soul down, are you out there? The candle shimmied, a soft whump of smoke. The temperature dropped, and then he stepped out of the haze like a closing argument. Tall, crisp, cheekbones high as you can see, and a purple suit so immaculate it could have baptized me. Wide lapels, pocket square with opinions, and shoes polished to a philosophical point. "Brad, you rang?" he said. Azaz, I managed, standing in front of my laundry pile. "Love the branding." He surveyed my studio with professional tenderness. "Cozy, vulnerable to gravity, vanilla, a bold scent choice for summoning, my friend. And do I detect a hint of apple crisp?" He smiled without teeth. "I'm Azaz, mid-tier demon rebranded as a performance alchemist. Deliverables, momentum, competence, charm, constraints, your habits, your attitude, and the fact that you've been speed-running rock bottom on 2x. "Fair," I said, because a precise roast is honest. "I need help." He produced a clipboard from smoke. It had tabs. "Intake, what do you want?" The truth fell out before pride could sand it down. "A promotion and the love of my life." "Ambitious, in scope and delusion. We can work with both. Promotion timeline." "Panel interview tomorrow. It's me versus someone with vision." "Romance timeline." "Before I die, preferably this fiscal year. Also, I've been online in bad places. I don't want to be that guy." "Then don't," he said simply. "We replace entitlement with curiosity. We practice consent, humor, and laundry. Congratulations, you have hired a better teacher." With a flick, a parchment contract unrolled across my table, edges smoking like a dramatic brisket. The agreement in handsome menace. "Free session is real. Ongoing plan includes milestones, feedback, and a minor soul retainer." He said it like a waiter suggesting wine. "No, I want boundaries, no biblical bloodstorms, and I want a safe word." He blinked, then grinned like a cat discovering a laser pointer that points back. A client with a spine. Name the safe word, please." "Deprioritize." "Project Manager Core," he murmured, pleased. He took out a fountain pen, and the words "No Soul Down" for First Promise glowed brighter, Bloodstorms disabled until 8 a.m., Local only, and safe word Deprioritize. He signed and I signed. The contract zipped away with the polite chime of a file uploaded. "Goals," Tomorrow we heist your promotion. Then we prototype romance. Tools you receive today? An annoying-ass 7-pound dog that nips at your heels every time you stay too long on your phone, a list of forbidden phrases, actually, and as a high IQ thinker, and females, and a pack of index cards labeled Stories Where I Was Wrong and Fixed It. I nodded. What about wardrobe? He opened my closet with 2 fingers in a prayer. Posture first. Shoulders back like you respect your lungs. Chin level like you're done apologizing for existing. And smile with molars, not your gums. Alright. You have a promotion and an interview coming up. We'll get that taken care of, don't you worry. And love? Verbs and listening, he said. He conjured a dating app that didn't feel like a trap and scrolled like he was shuffling a tarot deck. And pick someone you're genuinely curious about. Invite, don't audition. 1 sentence, your treat, specific time. A profile. Denim jacket. Enamel pin. Bio about used bookstores and chaotic sourdough. I typed, Would you like a coffee tomorrow at 11 at Bean Sector? My treat. I hovered. I sent. I threw my phone onto the couch before it could bite me. It buzzed. Yes, smiley face. I stared at Azaz like he'd hacked physics. That was easy. You didn't write an essay about how great you are. We ran a mock panel interview under the stern gaze of my zombie plant, which perked one front as if to say, finally. Azaz played the whole panel with unsettling accuracy. All right, morning plan. Write AirPod only. I'll be your closed captions. If I push too far, use the safe word. We pivot. You will not cosplay confidence. You will borrow mine until yours shows up. So, why me? I asked. The question had been dog-paddling in my chest since the flyer smacked me. He considered. Because the flyer landed at your feet and you didn't put it into a storm drain. Because you read your contract and asked for better. Because under the forums and the burritos and the oven mitt feedback, there's a man who wants to be useful and kind and, when necessary, dangerously charming. He angled his head, listening to a calendar only he could hear. Also, I get a bonus if you cry at work in a positive way. That's a category? It is now. He tapped the candle and it curtsied out. Sleep. Tomorrow we take your job, and the day after we go on a date without treating a person like a puzzle. Use mouthwash. He vanished with a neat corporate ding. I stood there in the quiet, looked at the Ouija board, the mock panel invite on my phone, and the text from a woman that said yes, smiley face. And for the first time in a long time, tomorrow felt like a door I was excited to open. By 9:58 the next morning, I was in a small conference room and 3 interviewers were there waiting for me. 3 waters, and a bowl of mints from the late Bronze Age. Right AirPod in. Azaz in my ear. Remember, Star. If you panic, say the safe word. Also, if they ask about culture, say, you're a wolf among Gantt charts. I tapped the AirPod twice and said, Heard ya, we'll ignore the wolf thing. Panel. Garrick, Priya, Janine. Priya opened. Thanks for coming, Brad. We'll keep it conversational. Say you love conversation almost as much as outcomes. Sounds good. Happy to be here. So, tell us about a recent win and your impact. Say you increase velocity 400%. Use the word shockwave. I didn't. 2 months ago, we had overlapping releases that kept stepping on each other. My part was small but clear. We didn't have one view of work. I set up a shared board, moved our stand-ups to 15 minutes, and added a short Tuesday check-in for dependencies. I didn't run more meetings, just made the ones we had more useful. After about 6 weeks, we went from missing 2 out of 5 dates to hitting 4 out of 5. Support volume dipped a little because fewer surprises went out the door. Garrick nodded, scribbled something normal. Relief. Boo! Where was Shockwave? Fine.
Tell us about a time you dropped the ball and what you changed.
Cry. Then say you rose like a phoenix. I missed a docs update and a tiny settings change. It felt minor until people started opening tickets. I owned it into the retro, apologized to support for the noise, and moved the FAQs into our repo room so they could follow the same review flow as code. Now when we ship, a checklist pings the dock owner before we flip the switch. Priya's smile edged up.
What's the metric?
Nothing dramatic. Fewer how do I tickets that week, and no repeat of that missed sense. Mostly I sleep better. Soft, human, and simple, and annoyingly effective, Azaz said. Everything is top priority. How do you decide what to do first? Say I'm allergic to low leverage. Then define leverage and how to use it over your enemies. I pointed to the whiteboard. I try to make trade-offs visible. I use a basic impact versus effort box so we're not arguing feelings. If someone says urgent, I ask who's affected, how many and for how long. Then we slice something we can ship this week to prove or disprove the need. If too many things are red, I ask leadership to pick one. I found that writing the options on the wall makes it easier to say not now without drama. Garrick underlined, please in a quiet way. You refuse to panic as a roadmap without saying the phrase refuse panic as a roadmap. Subtle. I hate how much I liked it. The interview went on for some time, and at the end, Azaz, low in my ear, said, close politely. No slogans. Thank you so much for your time. If you go another direction, I appreciate the clarity today. We shook hands. I leaned against the wall in the hall and let the air out of my lungs. You sounded like a person I'd let ruin my calendar. I hate it and I love it. Too plain? I whispered. Plain is the new miraculous. You answered like you've actually done the work. Also, you ignored every one of my worst ideas, which is growth for both of us. All right, tonight we prepped the date. Tomorrow you update LinkedIn without the word ninja in it. Copy. Proud of you, Brad. And his voice faded out. After the panel, I didn't sprint to social media. I walked, hydrated, and let the next steps subject line in my inbox sit like a warm coal. On the train ride home, I texted June to confirm the plan we'd set yesterday. Bean sector 11 a.m. my treat, and she replied, perfect, see you then. Azaz did a quick debrief. I ironed a shirt, set an alarm, and slept. In the morning, I charged my right AirPod, pocketed cash so I wouldn't wrestle an app at the counter, and headed out early because nerves never run slow. Bean sector smelled like fresh espresso and warm sugar. I got there 9 minutes early because Azaz said on time is late, and also because I didn't trust my nerves not to sabotage my commute. He had me in a plain navy shirt, ironed, clean sneakers, and the kind of cologne that says, I know soap exists, not I lost a fight with a mall kiosk. Azaz in my right ear. Check in. Posture, breath. Remember, this isn't an audition. Ask, listen, reflect. Copy, I murmured into my water. She arrived in a denim jacket with the be kind or else pinned from her profile and hair pulled back like she had stuff to do later, and was generous enough to put this first. Brad? She said. June? I stood, then paused halfway into a hug. Handshake or hug? A hug. she said, and we executed a competent one. No lingering, no shoulder collisions. Just two humans aligned for 3 seconds and proud of it. Consent. We love to see it, Brad. We ordered. I stuck to iced coffee, and June got a cappuccino and a lemon bar. I paid without turning it into a performance art piece. We found a small table near the window where the light made everything look a little kinder. Thanks for being clear in your message, June said, stirring her cappuccino with a seriousness I respected. The amount of sometime in my inbox is starting to feel like a scheduling curse. I smiled. I have a demon life coach who would tackle me if I wrote sometime. Her eyebrows did a tiny surprise jump that said she liked the man who chose a bit and committed. Bold opener. Do not elaborate, Azaz said into my ear. I'm kidding. Mostly. So, your pin. I like the threat built in. June laughed. I got it from a fair. It keeps me honest. And the or else thing is mostly at myself. She broke the lemon bar in half and slid a piece onto a napkin toward me. I bake sometimes. We were quiet for a beat in the good way. The kind that means reset, not rescue, and that you're comfortable in the silence. I asked about the book tote leaning against her chair, and she lit up, telling me about a used bookstore she loves to go to, how she volunteers at a Saturday reading program, and how 7-year-olds will absolutely roast your voice if you stumble through dragon names. Mirror it back. 3-word reflection. Don't make it therapy. Vibes and Grudges is the name, huh? I'd shop there. What do the kids roast you about most? My dragon voices, she said, delighted to be asked. I have 2. British Wizard Uncle and Inexplicable Staten Island. Those are opposites. Exactly. The kids hate both of them and insist I do a regular voice. She popped a little bit of a lemon bar into her mouth. What about you? What do you do when you're not scheduling 9 versions of Tuesday? Small things. Trying to cook more. Real meals. Walking without a podcast on, or reading non-doom and gloom. I got tired of feeling like a consumer of takes. I want to be a person again. Ooh, that was good. Don't undercut it with a joke. June nodded. Same. I went on a take detox last spring. Thought my brain was broken for a week and then it landed. My friends were like, welcome back to the group chat. We fell into an easy rhythm. Small questions, small answers, little refills. After about 45 minutes that only felt like 20, the date seemed like it was coming to a close. But a good close. I need to head out, June said. I tutor at 1. All right, Brad. Ask, clean, specific, and do not say sometime. I'd like to see you again. Saturday afternoon? Used bookstore with vibes and grudges? June smiled. I'm in. 2 o'clock? 2. A handshake or hug? She said, already stepping in. We traded numbers like adults so we wouldn't have to talk just through the app. No coyness, no negotiations, and she headed right, and I stood there long enough to watch her blend into the Saturday, and then force myself to move before I became a statue. In my ear, gentler than I'd ever heard him, you did that. I barely even helped. I almost confessed to my entire internet history. And instead, you told one true thing and let it be enough. Consider me impressed. Are you being nice? Don't tell anyone, it'll ruin the brand. I walked a few blocks before I let myself grin like a man who got upgraded from a middle seat to an exit row. At a crosswalk, a little kid pointed at nothing and said, "Purple man." I pretended I didn't hear that, and Azaz pretended he hadn't arranged it. Back at my place, I dropped my keys in the dish and sat on the couch with that good, dumb post-win ache in my chest. My phone buzzed. Had fun. See you Saturday. Frame that in your mind. Small, kind, and clear. I typed, looking forward to it, then put the phone down.
Alright, debrief. You asked, listened, and reflected. You didn't try to be the main character. You didn't perform failure for points. You helped when a thing fell. You asked clearly to see her again. We are, dare I say, trending. Any notes? I said, bracing. A hydrate. You humans leak a hope through your eyes when you get what you want and it dehydrates you. I laughed, went to the kitchen and drank some water, looked at the Ouija board on top of my bookshelf, and it sat there like a framed degree in attempting to be different. The word deprioritize scribbled on a sticky note beside it made me grin. All right, I said to Azaz, who was now sitting on my couch. Next step? You breathe for 20 minutes. Then we make some pizza rolls and watch something dumb. And then, when the offer letter arrives tonight, as it will, we will celebrate like mortals, with carbs and television and one small smug high five. Deal, I said. I lay back, the ceiling doing that slow afternoon blur, and let the day be exactly as big as it was. Not a movie, not a legend. Just a good coffee with a person I like to know, and a demon in a purple suit who, against odds, was teaching me how to be a person without burning anything down. Later that night I got an email. The offer letter in my inbox at 7:42 p.m. We'd like to make this official. Title bump, real money, start date, a paragraph about impact, and at the bottom I signed, attached, and sent it and grinned at my screen. Azaz on the couch beside me said, per clause 7b, we celebrate wins with mortal sacrament. Pizza rolls? Pizza rolls. Oven preheats, we fall onto the couch. The Ouija board watches from the bookshelf. I pack the bong. The lighter flicks itself on with theatrical restraint. We inhale, cough politely, and let the TV do its job. Tomorrow, he says, exhaling a smoke ring, and he blew a dragon through it. And tell 2 people the news. Resist the high school blast. Copy. You know, if this were a movie, this is where you'd reveal some hidden kind of clause in there. Azaz taps the air. A contract scrolls into being, parchment and elegant. Near the bottom a line glows. Addendum O. Successful outcome conversion. Upon achievement of designated milestones, the client's soul shall be held in escrow for mentorship alignment and continuous improvement. I stood up. Excuse me? Boilerplate. No one ever reads the boilerplate. I negotiated no soul down. This is soul later. A different proposition. I stare. He stares back, equal parts amused and fond. Then he sighs, produces a fountain pen that leaks purple light and carves a line through it. It squeals, curls, and dissolves into confetti that smells like bakery sugar. There, Noel, consider your soul non-billable. I had such a good time with you that I think we're actually friends. I'll go ahead and leave your soul to yourself. Lead with that next time, please. I require drama, he says, but Azaz is smiling. The oven beeps and tray 1 goes in. We eat like people who had a day. The TV judge is mean and vicious, but also polite in her own way, and pretty damn funny too. My plant looks greener just for fun. Somehow he seems to have come back to life yet again. So where do you go when you're not here, Azaz? Client work, mastermind chats, continuing education, he says, counting on transparent fingers. Taught a banshee how to use a calendar today. Coached a vampire through networking at day conferences. Conducted a hostile takeover of a to-do list. I also spoke with an eldritch being that helped another guy on a date not too long ago. He's a pretty cool guy. Ilganax or something? All those old gods have crazy names. He snaps and a brass key appears in his palm. He handed it to me.
Open the door across the hall tomorrow and I'll be there. You got an apartment? Unit 2B. Excellent, light, offended wallpaper, and a closet that leads to the building's emotional infrastructure. How'd you get it? It was occupied. Another world sublet, a very quick process. Did you remove them from this plane? He waves a hand. Briefly, laid on rent, cruel to their blender. I opened a courtesy portal. They'll return with a new, renewed suspect for property owners. We sit there and watch TV for a bit and finish our pizza rolls. Saturday at 2, you want to hang out? Oh, wait. That is your date, he said without looking at the TV. Bookstore date. You memorize my calendar. I wrote your calendar, but you'll run the date. No puppet strings, and if I whisper unhelpfully, use the safe word. I'll shut up and watch like a proud gargoyle from the distance. Deal. We clink water glasses like adults who don't hate being adults anymore. To promotions, he says. To omitting spicy clauses, I add. And to reading the fine print, he finishes. The TV laughter carries us. Outside, the night does its night routine. Inside, my place smells like cardamom, pizza, and the rare chemical compound of not being alone anymore. When credits roll, I stand, stretch, and turn to Azaz. Same time tomorrow? I ask. Yeah. Come on over across the hall, my new mortal friend.